It's quite fascinating how fast or how easily we humans get accustomed to certain things, even if it's uncomfortable. I think there was a commercial years ago where I learned the term nose blindness, right? Like for instance, our refrigerator, because we're Korean, we have kimchi in it. Usually, the real Koreans have two fridges, one specifically for the kimchi stuff, because whatever goes in the kimchi, whatever's around the kimchi will eventually smell like kimchi because it is that pungent. So we don't think twice about what kimchi smells like unless it's really bad. Then you have to notice it. Then we're like, oh, it's time to make stew out of this kimchi because it can't be eaten anymore. It's too sour. However, when non-Koreans who may have never smelled anything remotely close to kimchi will walk into a house and might think, do they have a sewage problem? To be fair, that's what it smells like sometimes. But we get used to it. It happens with other things too, like people who buy a house next to an airport or a train track. The first time they're there, when the train or plane flies over, the whole house rattles and you're like, oh my gosh. But after a while, we don't even notice it. It even happens with some natural phenomenons. We have a beloved friend who moved to California like a decade ago, and she never lived in California before. So as she was doing her thing in California, one day there was a 3.0 earthquake. Now, if you lived in California long enough, anything below like 4 or 3.5 earthquake, it's just cool. That was fun. It doesn't matter. Sometimes the funnest ones are the ones that roll because you do this. And you're like, okay. She completely freaked out. She said, the earth is not supposed to move like that. And I don't know what bothered her most, the earthquake or the fact that no one around her was reacting. Because again, anything that's like 3.0, it's just, we barely notice it. But it also happens to people. We sometimes end up completely blind, for lack of a better phrase, to the people around us. And I think that's where the story that we read today begins. For 18 years, this woman was bent over. For 18 years, she was straining her neck just to get a glimpse of the sky. For 18 years, she was forced to look at dirt while everyone got a chance to see other people's faces. But more devastatingly, for about 18 years, she was invisible. She remained nameless. We don't know anything about her, where she's from, what family connections she may have. We define her by her condition. She is the bent woman known more for her limitation than her humanity. 18 years of being known more for what's wrong with her than who she actually is. And as you can imagine, at first, people were probably really helpful. They probably pitied her, probably checked in, asked how she was doing. Do you need any help? Can we help you? But after a while, people just started getting accustomed to her presence there. They just got used to it. Her bent back became part of the scenery. They simply didn't see her anymore. She became simply the hunched lady in the synagogue. And if we're honest, we do the same too. We get used to other people's pain. The neighbor who's always struggling, the coworker who never seems quite okay, the relative whose depression lingers year after year after year. At first, we're shocked, and then we're saddened. But eventually, why is she always so unhappy? Why is that person working here if they're always complaining? We just stop noticing. The people stop noticing her. We stop noticing people around us because noticing takes effort. Seeing someone suffering means that we have to do something about it too. Either we acknowledge it and help, or we ignore. And sad enough, ignoring is the easier thing to do. So we stop noticing as well. But Jesus notices. He is teaching, and then he sees her. He doesn't wait for her to come to him. He doesn't even wait to ask her what she might need. He sees her, he calls her over, he says to her, "Woman, you are set free." He lays his hands on her, and immediately after 18 years, she stands up straight, and she is praising God. And I want to tell you, that little part is the heartbeat of the gospel. God notices the ones that we've stopped noticing. When you don't see others, Jesus confronts you. And when others don't see you, Jesus already does. This is a beautiful moment, a moment of celebration. I mean, if you were there, how would you have reacted? You know, you've maybe seen this woman, but you haven't really acknowledged her, but all of a sudden, she stands up straight and she's praising God, and you're like, "Oh my goodness," or maybe even, "Oh my God." That's pretty appropriate there. And we would be celebrating. But the leader of the synagogue, he responds by being indignant. Not because he's against healing, but because Jesus did it on the wrong day. Wrong time, wrong place, wrong method. Jesus broke the Sabbath rules. He disrupted order. And for this leader, order mattered more than this woman's freedom. Think about that for a second. 18 years of suffering. And the leader basically says, "What's one more day? You've been suffering for 18 years. What's one more day of suffering? You could have come back tomorrow when it was okay for you to be healed." And that's what happens when rules matter more than people. This is what happens when order and law matter more than freedom and liberation. And if we're really honest, we as churches are very, very, very guilty of this. We have let policies and traditions and this is the way we've always done things blind us to the people around us and to the suffering around us. I have been the synagogue leader more than I have been Jesus. And the church throughout our history has been the synagogue leader more than we have been Jesus. I was trying to find a modern story about how to relate this, getting punished for doing something wrong. And I found a story by the name of Adam Marcel, who lives in Australia. And he's a landscaper. And across the street from his house was a hole 6 foot deep that happened after a tree fell over. And for months, he saw elderly people and kids trip and walk around it, just really navigating it. And he said, "You know what? The city hasn't done anything. I am going to take this and do something about it." He didn't want to risk injury to his neighbors, so he did what any decent neighbor would do. He fixed it. He took his own time, his own money, and even established some greenery and soil around it so that it stabilizes everything, so that it becomes part of the scenery naturally. Problem solved. And you would think that the city would be like, "Oh, good." No. He was fined for almost $12,000. Why? Because they charged him for throwing away stuff in the hole. And if I don't know if you can read it, it says, Mr. Marcel has been ordered to dig up the soil and revert to the site to his derelict state and given 2 infringement notices. They were asking him to dig it back up. I'm pretty sure the story, this happened a couple years ago, so the story went viral. I hope the city council got the shame that they deserved and they backed away. But it is wild that this man spent his own money to help fix a problem to be a good neighbor, and he was fined $12,000 for it. Because he didn't do it the right way. Jesus heals a woman bent for 18 years, but he did it on the wrong day, on the wrong time. Marcel broke permit law, Jesus broke Sabbath law, but they both did it because people mattered more than rules. And if you're wondering what God cares about most, law and order or compassion and liberation, if you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that question is answered undoubtedly. Jesus cares more about liberation than law and order. Not that he doesn't care about law and order, but we've seen Jesus put aside the church laws to make sure that people know that they belong. And if you read the story, you see that Jesus doesn't just heal her body, he restores her identity. She is daughter of Abraham, he says. Not the henchwoman, not the cripple, not the needy case, a daughter of Abraham, a covenant heir, a beloved child of God. Do you hear that? She is no longer defined by her ailment. She is defined by her belonging. She is not her suffering. She is not her limitation. She is a beloved child of God. And that is still very, very true for you. You are not defined by your worst pain. You are not defined by your deepest failure. You are not defined by your biggest mistake. You are not defined by your diagnosis. You are not defined by your addiction nor your grief. You are not your limitations. You are a beloved child of God, an heir to the covenant. And this is what the kingdom looks like. When others see inconvenience, Jesus sees belonging. When others see disorder, Jesus sees liberation. But here it's where it gets really uncomfortable. The church is supposed to look like Jesus, which means we don't get to settle for being a gated community just for the upright. We don't get to be a Jesus police force protecting rules while ignoring suffering. We are called to be the body of Christ, which means we're called to notice the unseen, call them forward, and lift them up. So let's ask the hard question. Who are we not seeing? Who is bent low in our community while we're busy maintaining order? Who is carrying invisible burdens, mental illness, grief, loneliness, that we've gotten used to by walking simply past them? Who have we written off as too far gone, or not my problem, or, yeah, no, that's their responsibility, not mine? Because Jesus doesn't write people off. Jesus notices. He stops. He heals. And then he calls us to do the same. Because the story isn't just about a woman's healing. It's about a community's mission. It's about what kind of church one is going to be. Will we be a church that guards the rules, or a church that risks disruption for the sake of compassion? Will we be a people who prize order and control, or a people who rejoice when the unseen are finally able to stand tall? That is the question that the text leaves us with. Who are we not noticing? And for the rest of us, Jesus sees you. If you feel bent low under the weight of grief, anxiety, exhaustion, Jesus notices. You don't have to beg. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to wait until the timing feels right. Jesus already sees you and already calls you beloved. And Jesus calls us, his church, to go and do likewise, to see the ones who are bent low, to notice the ones who've carried burdens for a long time, so long that they stop asking for help, to risk disruption for the sake of compassion, to be a community where those bent over by life can finally stand tall. That is who we are called to be. Know this. If you feel unseen, Jesus already notices you. He sees you. He loves you. You are his beloved child. And if you have the gift of being seen, then pass it on. Because there are people in this room, there are people who are watching who have gone so long without anyone really seeing them. So may we open our eyes. May we see the ones that our communities stopped noticing, because that's what the kingdom looks like. That is what the church is meant to be. And may it begin always with me. I invite you to stand if you're able, and let us recite our creed together. We believe in one God,